Chapter 1 The Eye of Fate. Shema waited for a moment. The sun would soon set over the vast Egyptian desert and be out of her almond brown eyes. She twisted a thin hand around the rope, waiting for the perfect moment to capture the brown goat. It had eaten through its tie and wandered into the Nile Valley away from camp. Shema was the first person to run after him. Catching goats beat staying inside and making bread with the other women. She loved being out in the desert. A quick breeze pushed the sand, and Shema's blue robes fluttered in the wind, almost blowing away her thin shawl, which covered a long frenzy of black curls. She saw the goat. It bleated out as the sand hit it. She threw the lasso, and it caught around the goat's neck. "Got you," she yelled. The goat hardly responded. It only sniffed at the rope around its thin neck. She tightened the rope and headed home. It was a short walk back to the nomadic camp, where the tents scattered around a small area. A fire burned in the middle, where everyone sat drinking coffee. The camp was Shema's only home, and these were the only people she knew. She had only been allowed a few visits to the modern cities. The smoke twirled in the evening sky and blew away. The evening was Shema's favorite time of day. "Shema!" Omar called out, running toward her in the goat. His round face and warm eyes caught glimpses of Shema's. Omar was only 14, but he was Shema's best friend. He had unfortunately inherited his mother's short height and his father's roundness. Shema was the only person who stood up for Omar. "You almost missed dinner," he said with a cheeky grin. "Omar, you know I will always make it back on time." "You found him," Omar exclaimed, pointing at the goat. "That one always runs away. Come, let's go eat." Shema pulled on the rope, tugging at the stubborn goat. They walked through the camp and brought the goat to his pen. "Now, you stay," Shema commanded the goat as she shut the gate. "You are one to talk," a deep familiar voice called out. It was Mustafa. He laid a large, gentle hand on Shema's shoulder. "You did not tell me you were going to the desert for that goat." Shema could feel her cheeks turning red. She did not want to turn around and face him, but she did. Mustafa was the tallest in the clan. He had dark, brown skin weathered away from the years in the sun and desert. His dark eyes were kind and warm, just like him. He scratched his thick beard, which covered thin, stern lips. "Shema, I am speaking to you," he said. "Father, I didn't want to lose sight of him. I was the only one who saw him getting away. But you still should have told me. I am 15 years old." "You are right, but it does not matter. You cannot just disappear, Shema. It is still my job to protect you." "You still treat me like a child," Shema scowled darkly. Mustafa paused. You are more at risk of something happening to you." "Because of asthma? Father, please no. You know how hard it is for me to go into town and find you those inhalers. My breathing has been fine. Something must be going well." "Ah, but that's not all of it. Something bad can only become good." Mustafa raised his bushy eyebrows knowingly. "Or it just stays bad." She rolled her eyes. "Balance, Shema." He smiled at her then. "Let's go eat." Mustafa glanced over then, at Omar. "Omar, you are supposed to keep an eye on her." Omar nodded. "I can keep an eye on myself," Shema mumbled under her breath as Mustafa walked away. Shema loved Mustafa, but she hated how out of everyone in the village he treated her the most like a young child. Even Omar, who was a year younger, was given the responsibility of taking care of Shema. She knew part of it was that she was the closest thing he had to his own child. He found her in the desert 15 years ago. He couldn't have left her there. It simply wasn't the tribe's custom to leave an innocent person in the desert, especially not a baby. Many had objected to keeping her, because of the mysterious birthmark shaped like a lined eye on her right and her forearm. Many were wary of the coughing baby, abandoned in the desert. But Mustafa was the leader. He was the sheikh. So she stayed. Shema found her place eventually. She became a part of the clan, and all the members are considered one blood and one people. Omar and Shema made their way to the campfire. Everyone in the clan was enjoying their meal of rice and lamb. Shema filled a wooden bowl of the food and sat staring into the fire. She played with her meal, only taking a few bites. "What's wrong?" Omar whispered. "Nothing," she muttered back. "Here, you can have the rest." She handed him her bowl of rice and walked away from the campfire. "What's wrong?" Omar whispered. "Nothing," she muttered back. "Here, you can have the rest." She handed him her bowl of rice and walked away from the campfire. Omar stared at her for a moment. He knew her well enough to know she wanted to be alone. One of Omar's cousins leaned over. "Why is Shema always so strange?" Omar furrowed his eyebrows, staring back at her. "Watch your mouth, Ibn Am," he said defiantly to his older cousin. Shema rolled her eyes and turned away. "Boys." In her tent, Shema sat on her blankets and mat, rubbing the birthmark on her arm. The eye shapes stared back at her in the dim candlelight. Mustafa pulled back the tent entrance. "You hardly ate any dinner." "Just not hungry." "No, that is not the Shema Ramalia I know. What's troubling you?" he asked. Shema stared at her arm. "Why do you insist on treating me so different, like I don't know anything?" Mustafa came into the tent and sat next to Shema. He wrapped a strong arm around her narrow shoulders. "That's not true, Shema." "Yes, it is." She pulled away from him and stood up to face him. "You always talk about honor and respect, yet I don't get any." "Peace, child." "See? You just called me child. This is the third time this week you scolded me for going out into the desert and not telling you. It is to protect you. The desert can be dangerous." "But I know the desert. You've taught me everything I need to know to survive." Mustafa smiled slightly and tilted his head back. "You have a great spirit, Shema. I will promise to trust you more now that you are older. But you must promise to tell someone before you leave, even if it is just Omar." Shema could not help but notice her birthmark began to itch. She scratched at it, letting her finger relieve some of the annoying feeling, but it didn't go away. She pulled back her sleeve and stared at the dark brown eye shape. Probably just a bug bite, she thought to herself, getting up and following Mustafa back to the fire.